Good afternoon and evening to everyone that's joining. We're just letting the attendees join the meeting here, so hang tight for just a second while people join in with us. We might fill this one up, Simon. We've got a maximum on here, so let's see.
Oh yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people signed up for the webinar today. This is the most that we've had yet, so we're really excited for all the questions you guys are going to bring.
Awesome. People are raising your hands. So excited to be here with us. That's great.
Yeah.
So I think it's still, let me see, it's still adding folks into the meeting too. So you guys, how it works on Zoom is when we start the webinar, there's a process of admitting all of the people to join the webinar. So we're letting that process happen right now. And then we'll get started. I do want to let you know how this webinar works. It's pretty cool. So there's a button at the bottom of your screen. And if you're on a tablet, you might have to tap, or a phone, you might have to tap the screen first. And you might have to swipe to the right or swipe to the left and look for the thing that says Q&A. And on the Q&A, it gives you the ability to type your question to us. And you can ask really any question. This topic today is just general spraying applications. So not only agriculture, but other industries as well. So we just want to have an open dialogue with folks and share some of our expertise and what we're seeing as trends and uses. And then, if you want to participate in the conversation too, there'll be some of you that will ask and say, hey, do you want to come on live with us? If you say yes, then what that would look like is you'd turn on your video, we'd have your audio, and you would join us up here on stage, I guess is how we'd say that. And be able to join in the conversation with us. So anyway, just glad you're here. Thanks for joining us. And again, you can use that Q&A button right now to submit your questions over to us. And then how it works from there is we'll either type a response to your question and then we'll answer it that way, or we'll hit a button on our side that tells you that we're going to answer your question live. Now, after your question is answered, regardless of whether we typed the answer or we addressed it live, once we've addressed it and answered it, then it shows up for all of the other attendees. So just know that you'll see other people's questions and answers coming up as well. So go ahead and click on that Q&A thing and submit whatever's on your mind, whatever you want to talk about, and then we'll start hacking away at it. So
awesome.
Yeah. All right. I think it looks like we're now. Let me add Joy as a co-host with us too. All right, cool. Oh, I'm so excited to have all these people here. A lot of you are existing customers, so thanks for your business. We love having you as our customer. I recognize a lot of your names on here, so it's great to see you. And everyone else that's on, whether you're a customer or not, just thanks for joining us. I'm Brian Sanders, and I'm here with my partners in crime or co-host, Simon Aslan over there.
How you doing, guys?
Also, Joy with us too.
Hello.
Joy,
yeah, I actually used the wrong link, so I couldn't get in over here. I had to come back to the panelist side.
I gotcha.
That's all right.
No problem. So, Simon, you didn't get the purple memo today, apparently.
Oh, yeah, I guess not, right? You guys gave me a purple one. I had the green one, though. I don't think I have a purple one.
Talk about internal company business.
I know, right? Yeah.
Right?
I see how it is now, being not being a Sanders. I see how it is.
There you go.
Oh, uh-oh.
Shade thrown.
That's awesome. All right, cool.
Yeah. And I saw we actually had a question submitted online already. And I also have all the ones that were submitted with our RSVPs too.
Yeah.
So we can jump in wherever you guys want.
Awesome. Cool. So Simon, why don't you grab the first one from one of our attendees live? This is from Mark.
Mark Collins asks, since the COVID pandemic began, I've seen some stadiums being sprayed/cleaned. Have you guys considered similar applications locally, and what are some examples? Great question. We've been getting calls every day about this kind of work. So this is definitely something we're looking into. We're very interested in this type of application. So we're working with our manufacturing partner on a couple of challenges that are involved with operating our aircraft, which are designed for agricultural purposes outdoors, and bringing them to the indoor section like a stadium or even semi-outdoor venues, and figuring out and solving the challenges associated with that. So one of the big challenges is the control system relies on GPS, and GPS does not work indoors. So currently, the only way to operate the aircraft indoors is to fly it manually. And of course, we're all about automation. Automation is what makes our drones so effective, what makes them so consistent, and what makes them really so usable. So that's something that we're looking into. As far as the actual application of it, there's also some questions up in the air about that as well. So what we really like to see is the data. As you can see on our website, we have so much data on our actual spraying systems. And this is something so new, right? So we're looking into what's involved with spraying and how effective actually is it? Is it actually effective to spray a venue with a drone for sanitization efforts? So those are all things that we're looking into. As far as is it possible to do with our aircraft? Currently, absolutely, it is. It is possible to do it. Like I said, there are some challenges involved. We're looking into solutions for that as well. We have seen some other companies out there already operating aircraft in these type of environments while spraying. What's up in the air right now is actually, a lot of it has to do with the actual product being applied. There's not much information and data out there of what is actually being applied and how effective it is. There's also concerns with how it's regulated. Is it EPA approved? Where can it be applied? How long does it last? How often does it need to be reapplied? There's a lot of these questions that we're working on figuring out. And of course, we're always interested in customers that are interested in this as well. If you guys have that type of information and have those resources available, please reach out to us. I mean, we'd love to hear more about it. Again, we're learning about it too. This is something new to everybody. So, we'd love to learn more if you guys have that information. You know how to reach out to us.
Awesome. Yeah. I think it's, one of the other things I'll just add on to your coattails there, Simon, is that we're hearing from so many different customers and prospective customers all over the world. So it's really, it's an industry that, that we saw kind of coming, but not to the extent or to the demand that it really has shown up. We are seeing about 20% of our customer generated inquiries now being about COVID and sanitation efforts. I mean, it's just sanitization, efforts. And it's just new. So there's a lot of it, what I keep explaining to prospective customers is that we're just going to be learning right alongside with you. Of course, we're drone experts. We know the technology, we know the hardware all day long, and it's a whole different chemical environment. It's a different physical environment. So again, like Simon said, there's just a learning process. But we're really excited, and we love that customers are coming to us to, have our aircraft being the one flown out there. So really cool. And also there's some excitement with chemical companies that are coming to us as well, saying, hey, we know you sell the spraying drones. Let's look at having efficacious treatments using our chemicals with your drones. So there's just a lot of activity in this space right now. So super cool.
And I was going to say, stay tuned too, because, like North Dakota State University, we're doing some testing on playground equipment, some outdoor disinfectant areas. So they are looking at that, and we're looking at the spray efficacy, on the underside of things and all that. We know it's really effective with crops, and again, like Simon said, is it how long is it going to last? How often does it have to be sprayed? If people need to clear the area for a while, those kind of things. So yeah, stay tuned.
It's cool. It's very exciting. So as a reminder for some people that joined us a little after we started, the way to ask questions, and we'll address them live either by a written response or by speaking about it like we just did on Mark's question, is to hit the Q&A button on your screen, either bottom kind of right side if you're on a desktop or a PC or a tablet. It might be also, you might have to click on your screen if you're on a smartphone or a smaller tablet, and you might have to swipe somewhere to see the Q&A button. There might be 3 dots you have to hit. It just depends on your device. But anyway, look for the Q&A, and then in there is where you can submit your question to us so we can answer it live. We also have some folks that have called in on the phone, and there's not really a way that you can do a Q&A proposal if you've called in, because there's not like a key, a type in command that you can do. So I think a little later what we'll do is we'll just temporarily unmute you and say, hey, caller, do you have a question? And if you do, you can ask us then. And if you don't, then you could be like, no, and just, or not respond or whatever you want to do, okay? So that's what we'll do. So again, send your Q&As in. And then, Joy, you want to jump into our list of questions that some folks submitted prior to the webinar, and we can.
Yes, yeah, we actually had a few questions. One of our hot topics is FAA, regulatory compliance. We had a few questions about that, so I'm just gonna combine the questions, read those out loud, and then give like a summary answer for it. So just hang tight just for a second so I can make sure I can see the screen. Okay, so one customer, okay, here it goes. So the first customer asked, what steps do I need to take to include agriculture spraying to my existing business? And this, just a note, background on this customer, they're already a commercial drone pilot, so they already have their Part 107 license, and he's just doing drone operations with the cameras, and he wants to add spraying operations. And then another question from a different customer is, there is confusion as to what licenses, certificates, waivers are needed from the FAA to spray weeds, etc. Can spraying be done with a Part 107 with waivers? And then we had a third question, what license are necessary in New York for spraying disinfectant via UAVs? So I'm going to combine the answer to all three of those questions. So besides the Part 107 license, which one of those customers has, if you're going to spray under Part 107, you need a waiver and the 137 certificate. That's your agricultural operator certificate. If you're going to operate over 55 pounds for spraying, then you have an exemption and the 137 certificate. So either way, you need an approval to be able to spray, and then you get your 137 certificate for spraying. And if you need anything else, like, you know, night ops or multiple aircraft or something like that, those are in addition to that. And then not on the FAA side, but on your state side, you just need to check with your state, like the state of New York, for your applicator's licensing and what will be required for that. So hopefully that, and if that didn't kind of clarify it, you guys put it in the Q&A and I can add to it. And then another hot topic, I'm just gonna bring that one in too, is the remote ID. You know, if you guys aren't familiar, in the US, the FAA has an NPRM, which means, they're still looking at and determining what they're gonna require for the remote ID. But I actually found something which is pretty, I think it's pretty promising. And I'll let you know kind of our view on it also. But the question is, how is remote ID going to affect the industry, since agricultural operations are out in the sticks with very little cell coverage? And the remote ID is, you know, where they're pinging off cell service. So because it's in the NPRM, it's unknown exactly at this time. Congress, FCC, USDA, they've all acknowledged that there would be a problem with agricultural operations and the cell signal, you know, to have internet access. The Farm Bureau specifically has added comments, and they're recommending an either-or approach for agricultural operations that would allow it to send the signal once it gets back in the service area, to broadcast the signal once internet's available. Or they've called on the FAA to provide an alternative method specifically for agricultural operators. They've also asked to establish a position on the Drone Advisory Committee for agriculture, forestry, and rangeland representatives. So our opinion on that, you know, based on what we've seen and know in the industry, because of the major support for drone technology, specifically also in agriculture, we assert that it won't hinder the use of agricultural drones, especially in those rural areas. You know, the benefit to the increased economy, you know, the growth of the economy is just, it's going to far outweigh that. So I think they'll come up with some solution as an in-between for that. And we're kind of waiting, just like you guys are, to see what they come up with. Same, you know, just like when they didn't have a drone pilot license yet, you know, or Part 107. So it's kind of an unknown at this time, but hopefully that kind of helps answer the questions for you guys.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Joy.
Yeah.
I think the other part that I think is there's another question on here from some of our friends up in Canada that says, what's happening with the and let me get the exact phrase correct, how they've asked this. Any news from the Canadian Agriculture Ministry for clearance to use drones and helis for spraying crops? So we're part of a task force or a working group that's primarily, it's about 70% made up of Canadian regulators and drone experts and chemical companies. And then we're expanding more and more and more of US groups into that group. And there is some really exciting progress happening in Canada. So it's going to be very specific. What I'm really excited about for the Canadian market specifically is that drones under 55 pounds will have a pretty expansive opportunity to operate in spraying. And that'll be swarming abilities that they're looking at, all sorts of really exciting stuff. And there'll be a certain baseline of training and proof of your skills, so to say, that would go into that. But their intent, from what I can tell, my interpretation of it is that their intent is to make it easy and doable, but also safe. I think like all regulators. And then there's going to be options for over 55 pounds that will include some additional safety case and mitigations. So you'll have to be able to test at a higher level of proficiency and safety in your flight handling and characteristics. And then you'll also need, there's some other additional approvals from, I think, that are more going to be written submissions and exemptions that'll be for aircraft over 55 pounds. So it's really exciting. The Canadian equivalent of our EPA is looking at how to have chemical companies have specific labels for drone spraying. Now, right now in the US, we just follow and recommend that customers follow the aerial label for that chemical. But in Canada, they're looking at, there's a lot of benefits as far as recovery rates and like a capture rate, so to say, that it's possible that you'll end up having to use less chemical from a drone versus a traditional aerial application. So Canada is actually asking chemical companies to look at having a drone label specifically, so they can really capture and leverage the savings of chemical and the reduced possible environmental impacts. So that's exciting. That's something, and like I said, your main, I can't really say who, but your main well-known chemical brands are all part of this working group. So they're already in on the conversation and stuff. So really exciting progress in Canada. Some similarities to the US, but also some real big differences that I think are pretty neat. Let me see here. So that answers
there was another one.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say there's another one that somebody asked, is there any specific limitations to use drones in the Andes region, South America? And it's kind of harder to tell how the regulatory framework is in other countries. But we do have some customers and upcoming dealers that are looking in Chile and Peru and a few other areas out there. So I know in Brazil, they allow commercial drone operations and spraying. So I think they're just kind of following, they're following others' leads, and they're all kind of coming on board together is what it's looking like. So yeah, I would check with your local aviation authority and see how you can get an approval for spraying out there.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Joy. Simon, I'm going to have you talk about some of the work that we've done and just the kind of simple studies that we've done with customers on pest control. So the ant bait, things like that. And before you go into that, I just want to remind all of our attendees, use that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to ask your questions. We have a list of lots and lots of questions that people submitted ahead of time. So we'll keep going through those, but really, our agenda for this call is to answer your questions. So whatever those are, if you've got them, I don't care if you think it's a good question or a silly question, or if you're like, they'll answer it anyway, don't take the chance, just submit it to us, because, we really, our intent is to answer, and whatever had you say yes and set your time aside to be on this webinar, we want to address what's on your mind. So just please take us up on that opportunity, okay?
Exactly right.
Yeah, go for it, Simon, take it away.
Right. No, I was just going to say again, the goal of this webinar is to answer your questions live, to have our time allocated to you. So we appreciate any questions that we receive. So as far as pest control with our aircraft, obviously there's a couple different methods that you can control pests. Obviously you have liquid applications and granule applications. So those are, I think, the two big types of applications. So the good thing is we have drones that can apply both types of applications, whether it's liquid or granule. So for example, something like an amp gate would be typically done with a granule application. You can use our granular spreader on our M8A Pro model to apply that. Same thing with the granular, or the liquid application. With both systems, you have the ability to adjust the rate for what you need to apply. So for example, if you require 2 gallons per acre in your application rate, you can adjust that. Like you were saying, Brian, as far as we know, all the major chemical manufacturers are already developing labeling specific for drones. And that's one of the big things that we're waiting for. Is we've already proven with our testing through our universities and our partners at the USDA that drone application is more effective than other methods of application, for example, backpack spraying. So that's one thing that we really are so excited to see in the future is labeling specific for drones. Because like you said, from our testing, you can use less product and achieve the same result, which is really what everybody wants. So that's something we're really excited about. As far as additional types of pest control, I mean, we've seen our aircraft being used for just about every kind of pest control you can imagine. So really, it's no pun intended, the sky's the limit for this for that type of application. A couple things that I just want to mention, and this is a question we get all the time, and this is somewhat related to pest control applications, but also really any type of application by drone. But we always get asked, well, how much area can I cover with the drone? I have this problem with my field, for example, my crop, and I need to know how much area I can cover. Well, what it boils down to with drones specifically is the application rate really 100% dictates how much area you can cover. Most of our control for our application rate is done by changing the speed of the drone. So obviously that drastically changes the area that you can cover. So an application rate of 10 gallons per acre versus an application rate of 1 gallon per acre is going to be a drastically different coverage rate. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you have specific questions about your application in your area, if you can give us your application rate, that'll help us determine how much area you can actually cover. So it's actually part of our calculator that we have on our website as well. Just wanted to bring that out there. And I see we have a bunch of questions coming in too. That's great.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. I'm going to grab this one from Ross.
Sure.
Hey, Ross. Ross is asking, my question for you is, do you need a specific drone to do the spraying, or is it a system that can be integrated to a drone that we already own? This is an awesome question. All right, well, I'll take you down a quick trip down memory lane, because us drone people had to figure this out too, right? Just like when manned aviators became a thing, their thought after coming back from the war was like, all right, well, I already know how to fly a plane. Can't I just hook some tanks up and some pumps and nozzles and just spray stuff off this plane? And kind of, yeah, the answer is yes. It really evolved from there. Now there's aircraft, they're customized and really built, modeled, and built around spraying. Could you strap a tank, a pump, nozzles to a drone that can carry the weight? Totally, right? Some of the challenges that go into that are things like, can the flight controller handle and manage a flight with a sloshing payload, right? Because the liquid, just the physics of it, are going to have the aircraft oscillate and gyrate about as it's trying to fly, as it switches lanes, etc. One of the other things that people don't often think of is the actual flight design. The flight plan design is also quite unique, right? You want to set up parameters that the drone does a certain kind of pattern. and has a certain swath or width in between each rows. Depending on the autopilot or the flight controller you use, that may or may not be an option. One of the other, I think probably the most pressing and the most important issues are how do you control concise and repeatable deployment of that chemical, right? So how do you manage the actual application quality during that flight? Now, if you're a programmer and you have the way to get into your ground station software and can connect the values of how fast the drone is flying to the pump rates and make sure that at the end of the rows it shuts off the sprayer before it transitions to the next row, then that it's also one of the parts. The other thing you want to look at is the usability of the aircraft. Now, we've learned a ton over our 11 years in business here and 6 years in spraying drones specifically, because our first models were not that usable in some ways. They were cool in other ways, especially at the time. But nowadays, man, it's like, I want this thing to fold up into a tiny little thing that I can just pick up and carry around. I want to be able to hose the whole thing off. So I want it to be waterproof or as close to that as possible. I want the parts to be user serviceable in the field. So if I have a problem or an issue where I have a little run-in with a tree or something, I can swap out a prop and put a new one on. I also want to be able to have the flight data to show afterwards that I, applied that product wherever it was. There's a lot of these things that we've already mastered or are in the process of implementing. And then I also think about, just the balance of having an aircraft that has the kind of precision to be able to conduct the work that you need. For example, with the FAA's safety exams, when they come out and do your in-person exam, one of the things they'll do is they'll make sure that if the drone goes into a fail-safe, like the remote controller's been disconnected or the batteries are critically low, does the drone automatically shut off the spray system? So that's another thing that if you're trying to map an existing drone into converting it to a spraying drone, those are all things you'll need to think about. And then the really exciting part comes into doing all of the testing. And that is a tremendous amount of work that we've undertaken. And frankly, a lot of other drone companies haven't done this, which is a missing for the industry as a whole. But flight characteristics and the flight dynamics really impact the quality of the application. So depending on the height above the crop, the speed in which you're traveling, the placement of nozzles, the types of nozzles, the flow rates, the pitch of the propellers, all of those things can impact the actual quality deposition of the flight and of the application. So all of that stuff really, to be able to guarantee, like, I've got a solid vehicle for applications, are all things you want to consider. That is a lot of an answer to a 3-sentence question, but I hope it was helpful for you, Ross. And yeah, we can jump into the next question, you guys, and keep them coming. You guys are doing great. We've got a whole list of questions here.
Cool. I'm actually going to read it out loud to you, Simon and Brian, because there's a couple different questions that came in separately for him. And I have something that I can add to it first, and then I'll let y'all answer. So Josh says, hi, thanks for being here, Josh. I'm a plantation forest manager in New Zealand. I'm interested in using drones to cover, is that sow grass seed?
Yep.
I'm just not as familiar. Okay, on earthworks and areas of soil disturbed during harvesting operations and fitting a sprayer on during spray season. There aren't a lot of people using the bigger drones, so the boss is hesitant to buy the drone given the high capital outlay. So my questions are, do you have any forestry companies using the seed spreader for forestry? And if so, can we be put in touch? Can you control the swath and the width of seed being spread? And can the seed spreading drone be fitted with the sprayer?
Oh my gosh.
Great
questions. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I can jump in and start answering some of those. So as far as can the seed spreading drone be fitted with the sprayer, we have one model. It's our M88 Pro. It's actually our largest model. It has a 20-liter liquid payload and a 20-kilogram granule payload. That drone can be swapped. So that model, essentially, you have to unscrew the landing gear. You can swap the landing gear and the spraying system to the spreader system, and it takes less than 10 minutes. So it's very easy to swap around. Very, very simple to exchange. As far as controlling the swath and the width of the seed being spread, absolutely. You can control the the aircraft swath. And there's also some control in the actual spreader swath as well by controlling the speed of the spinner that actually ejects the granules. And lastly, do you have any forestry companies using the seed spreader for forestry? That's a good question. I don't know. Brian, do you know if we have anybody using forestry?
There's a company that flies our aircraft and is in forestry, but they've come up with their own attachment that's specific to what they're using it for. And that's all I can say.
Yeah.
However, there's a lot of folks that are, and the seating attachment is still kind of new. We've had it out for maybe a year or so. So a lot of folks are using it for grass seed specific, whether it's alfalfa. I don't know exactly what's common there for our friends over, Kiwi friends, but that is, the attachment itself is pretty flexible. There's a lot of specifications for it, Tim, on our website. So if you go to our website, hse-uav.com, and then you go to the products, agriculture, it's the M8A Pro, and you'll see the seed spreading drone. If you click on the specifications tab, you'll see a lot of the specs and details for the spreader itself. It talks about internal volume, etc. Also, super exciting, Tim. You might know this already, but I don't know. I'll just address it. We actually have a dealer partner in Auckland, and they actually fly several of the 20-liter drone that seed spreader attaches to. So if we haven't already hooked you up with that group, let us know, and we'll get you in touch with our friends over there in New Zealand that can distribute this and do demonstrations and all that stuff. So let me see what else was on there. I think that was it. Oh, there was a really great question. Wait, hang on, I'm looking at it here. Oh, for Tim, this is another question. So he says, I have my 107 license, but I don't have my 137, which is required for my state's aerial application, my applicator's license. Would I be able to purchase a spray drone from you before receiving these licenses? I'd like to work on my skills prior to testing for these licenses. Okay, Tim, that's a freaking great question, and it's brilliant. I like the way you're thinking. So the answer is yes, yes, yes. Sorry, I've got my my desk phone's ringing. Sorry. So the answer is yes. You can totally purchase the equipment, and in fact, the reason I said I love what you're thinking is because there's just some skills it takes, right? Some calibration, some testing. You want to do that in your fields on your property. Now, lawfully, you'll do that with water, right? You can use like fluorescent dyes. You can use a carrier agent, but water is acceptable to spray. Also, get your hands kind of wet, so to say, with flying the aircraft, right? Doing your flight plans. We really suggest that whether or not you have your 137, get your bearings so that by the time you get those approvals from the FAA and from your state, then you'll be ready to go. You won't have to learn all the getting efficient and charging and all that stuff once you have your licenses. So use the time in between in that window to get proficient. We also work with our lending partner, and we've got a program that we designed specifically because of that time frame that allows you to buy the aircraft, take the training. You can either have us do the FAA stuff for you, or you can do it, and then you can make minimum payments. It's like $29 a month for up to 6 months. And the design there, our thought here is that customers can buy the equipment, get their exams, get everything done, passed, tested, do your calibrations, your own testing in your field, get really savvy, and then by the time you're out generating money with it, then you can start making payments or pay the whole damn thing off. But hopefully that's a helpful answer to your question there. If you want to know more, on our website, the services tab, and then leasing and financing is where the application is for that, okay? Cool, all right, awesome. And then we'll jump on, Joy, Simon, onto the next questions we've got here. And we've got, oh, sorry, before you guys do that, we've got about 10 minutes left of our webinar today. So again, if you have any questions we haven't answered yet, make sure to use that Q&A button at the bottom to get your questions answered here in the last 10 minutes. And for the folks that called in on the phone that you don't have a Q&A button, after this next question, I'm going to unmute you, and I'm just going to say, hello, caller, and then you're going to say, I've got a question, or don't say anything, and I'll mute you again, okay? it's a way we could get you guys involved and, you know, have a chance to get your questions answered, okay? Watch them hang up. They're like, no, no, no. All right, cool. Joy, Simon, can you grab these next questions that are up?
Okay, so these are actually, well, it's just two separate, but it's the same customer. So Matthew says, thanks Matthew for being here. I teach an introductory college course on SUAS in geospatial sciences. That's awesome. I have a Mavic Pro that my students use, and we use Pix4D software for analysis. Do you partner with colleges for student-based projects?
So we work with a lot of colleges and universities, absolutely. And we absolutely just love working with them because they're just a wealth of information for us, right? A lot of the universities we partner with are the same people that provide a lot of the testing for us. So I'm sure that we can work with you. We've done so in the past. So if you can, send us an email with some more information on your particular project, and we'll be happy to discuss that with you.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Matthew. And then Ross asked, do we have any agents in the Caribbean region or strictly North America?
All right, so I'll address that because it's pretty exciting. So right now we don't have an agent in the Caribbean. We do have customers in that region, but not an agent specifically. However, we're actually in the process of revamping our whole dealership and our both international dealers and domestic dealership partner network as well. So some super exciting stuff. So if you, Ross, are interested in becoming that, then please let us know. Otherwise, you know, if you want to pop up to Orlando, you know, for a demo or, you know, to do flight training, et cetera, we'd love to have you. We are following our COVID guidelines as well, so we're keeping our in-person attendance quite tight, but we can totally work that out and arrange that with you. Also, we've got a ton of videos and up close and like in-depth videos of almost all of our aircraft on our YouTube page, so check that out if you haven't already. And if you have some questions about something you want to know specifically, you can chat with us on our website or email us or call us or whatever works for you, okay? Cool. Oh my gosh.
I know. Kurt. Oh.
How cool is that?
That is really cool. I was just going to say, oh my gosh, what was that? Like 2015 or 2016?
Well, you got to tell everyone else on.
Okay, I'll share. I know, I'm all smiling. Hi, Kurt. So Kurt says he just wants to say hi to Joy and Brian. He trained with us in Denver several years ago, really early on. That's awesome. And we keep in touch on LinkedIn, and it's so great to have you here. Aw, hi, Kurt.
That's Kurt. I think it was 2014 or 2015.
It was a while ago.
Thanks,
that was
Kurt. That's so
was
cool.
that even prior to Part 107? That was when we had to get 333 exemptions.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yep.
So
there
cool.
wasn't even a drone pilot license back then. You had to get your private pilot license.
All right. So to my phone people, we're coming to you. Get ready. All right, so the first person I'm going to unmute is from an area code 410. So I'm going to allow you to talk. Okay, caller, are you there?
Yes, we are.
Well, hi, how are you?
I'm fine. I wanted to say hello to Simon. It's Bobby Lowe and Ben.
Oh my gosh, Bobby, how are you? It's been a minute. How's it going?
Hey, we're doing well. My grandson's father, Phil, helped us last week, and we got our field sprayed, and I'm ready to plant my gourds, and I think I have unbugged all my bugs.
Oh, that is so awesome to hear. You know, I was actually just thinking about you the other day. I said, man, I haven't heard from Bobby in a while. I hope you're doing good. I'm so happy that you came on, to say hi to us.
And we have the first year jitters underneath our belts now. And
awesome.
It's not like every time the drone goes up, my heart goes down in my stomach, so I'm good.
That's good. That's good. I'm glad that part is over.
Okay.
Wait, Bobby, I have to say something too. So Brian is actually my little brother who bought me that perfume that you loved, that you went, the Euphoria, Brian. This is Bobby who went out. So now we have matching perfume. And he's the one that picked that up.
Using it.
Oh, that's so cool.
I get it every year.
That's great. Oh, that's awesome.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks
Thank
for
you
saying
again.
hi. All
Bye.
right, so I'm coming to the next person that's called in, and I don't see your phone number, but I'm going to let you talk. Okay, caller, can you hear us? Are you there? Silence. Okay, so I've just unmuted someone that's called into our webinar on the phone, and if you just say something, then I'll be able to know it's you. Are you there? You might be muted on your side. And you don't have to say anything. You can just be.
Don't scare
Like
them.
being on the radio.
I know.
That's all right.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and mute you again. Thanks for either way. Thanks for calling in. You might not have had a specific question. I'm just going to go ahead and mute you again. All right, cool. Okay, so let's see. We've got a couple other Q&As here. Let's see. I think that Joy, can you grab the
Yes.
question from Mark there?
I will. Yes, I've got the question from Roth. He says, can you send me the direct contacts for you guys? My boss would like to chat further following this webinar. I myself would love more info as I'm a drone operator in the oil and gas industry. Cool. And abundance of knowledge isn't just golden, but fulfilling to be able to correctly answer clients in an effort to lead the drone operations in as safe a manner as possible. Yes, absolutely right. We can't agree with you more. Yes, Ross, I'll actually put my email address in. I'll type the answer here and put my email address there, and you can just send that directly to me.
Cool.
And we have a new customer actually. They're waiting on their approval, but they've got their aircraft that are also in oil and gas industry. So we'll kind of see what else you guys want to do with that. And then Mark, he says, what would you say the estimated time frame is from day one, no knowledge in this arena, to getting 137 certified and getting needed state approvals, getting set up with the necessary equipment and training, all the way to being ready for a spraying mission? Okay, I'll start with answering that question. It's not a for sure time frame, but we've got a pretty good average. Your aircraft and equipment can come pretty quick. You know, that's probably the quickest part. And the training, we offer a 2-day training and we offer it once a month. So you can get that done also. For your state on the applicator's licensing, you'll just want to get the material and do your self-study on that and get that going. And then it's an exam that you go in and take. If you don't have your Part 107 license, that's the same thing, a knowledge test and some self-study. So that's kind of on your own time frame. As far as the FAA approvals, what we're seeing, there's the two different parts. There's your approvals, and then there's your 137 certificate. The approvals, we are very happy and proud to say, have been going a lot faster than they started. So we're getting those in an average of about 90 days, a little under 90 days. Once we submit your approval and the FAA receives that in about 3 to 5 business days, we can start your 137 certificate once it's on the docket, once you have a docket number. So that by the time you start working through those phases, there's 5 phases in the certificate process, that you'll have the exemption and everything else in place by then. That part depends on what FSDO, what flight services office you're working out of. So that's your local area. You're lined up with other manned operations. So it really depends on, we usually get a pretty good idea at the beginning once we talk to them, what their wait list looks like. We've had some FSDOs tell us recently they're expecting about a 90-day process. So if we can get those two going, coincidentally, while you get your training and your aircraft and all your testing and practice and all that in, then, that's how we would suggest it, is get the aircraft equipment, start your FAA processing, do your self-study for your licensing and testing, and wrap it all up with a nice pretty bow after that, and get up in the air, get your program launched. That was the last one?
That was it. Yeah.
Cool.
Oh man, look at us, right on time. You guys were getting so good at this. Come on, go team. All right. Well, so thanks. Oh, hang on. I think we got someone at the very end. All right. We'll take Ross's question too. So I'll answer that real quick for you, Ross. Heard you mention a 2-day training. Is that for the spraying application? So Yes, our primary training class, Ross, happens monthly in Florida, just north of Orlando. There's details and the schedule on our website, hse-uav.com. And then if you look at the services tab, you'll see flight training. There's also a part under the Learn tab for flight training, and it's our events calendar you can see on there. Next one, Simon, is June 18th and 19th?
Yes, I believe that's correct. Yes.
Awesome. And then, also a good question. Price for that training, Ross, is $9.99. That's the 2 days, and it's primarily focused around spraying. Okay, that's a primary focus for that class. We also have a security and first responders training class that we offer in Denver. It's 5 days. It's a kind of a whole different wheelhouse, but contact us if you want to know more about that class, okay? As your second question is there any possibility of doing online training? And we are looking at creating an online webinar training class like we're doing now. You know, there's some challenges that go into it because there's just nothing like hands-on training. And until we can figure out how to really guarantee the quality of the skills you walk away with, we're still trying to figure out how to do that online training thing. So it is something we're looking at. But you know, our customers walk away from training like frickin' rock star pilots, and we just have some concerns about how we can deliver on that if it's just online. But it is something we're thinking about. We might offer like workshops, kind of the basics of flying. Some of that stuff we can do online. Maybe it would be a split off portion of what a training would be. But kind of stay tuned, okay? Simon, Joy, do we have? Oh yeah, go ahead.
So I just want to jump in there real quick. You know, something that we have talked about is we do have a lot of customers that already come from a drone background. So we have considered doing an online-based training that is specific to the software and the specifics to a spraying drone, right? Because there's a lot of differences between a spraying drone and something like a DJI Phantom. So that is something we're considering. Again, we're still working on that. It's not something we offer yet. But we're thinking about it, especially in today's times. You know, it's becoming more and more of a necessity. So we're definitely looking into that.
Awesome, good. Thanks, Simon. And you guys have some. Do we still have seats in that class in June?
Yes.
Okay, I think we have
yes.
very few because we've added.
I was gonna say maybe one or two. Don't hold me to it. You guys
Yeah,
come quick. They go quick.
Don't have it in front of me.
Get in touch with us if you want to come to June's class. I think July is pretty in good shape, but get in touch with us if you want to come to June.
Right.
All right, you are so welcome, you guys. Thanks for your feedback.
Thanks, Ross.
Appreciate you being here. Thanks for joining us. We're going to post this video live on you, or not live, but on YouTube. And our older webinars are on there too. We've got one for leasing and financing. We've got one from a research project we've done with the USDA about spray quality research. That webinar is awesome. We have one all about FAA and compliance. Didn't we do just a generic drone one too?
I believe so, yes.
I think. Either way, they're all on our YouTube page. If you don't know where to find that, go to YouTube, type HSE-UAV, or on our website. At the very bottom, you'll see the little social buttons, and those are also an option for you to get us on YouTube. Cool. Thanks, you guys. Have a great week.
Thanks again, guys. Great questions.
Everybody stay safe.
Totally.
Take care.
All right, thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.